UCI Cycling's governing body banned Armstrong for life.
And Marion Jones, who would store steroids in the refrigerator.
I have no one to blame but myself.
For this Global Perspectives group project, our aim is to spread awareness of the importance of clean sports and the relevance of anti-doping policies. Our research question is, why do athletes use performance-enhancing drugs in sports, and what effect does it have on them? In this video, we will be covering number 1, define doping, 2, what is WADA, 3, commonly used PEDs, 4, how is doping tested, 5, why athletes dope and WADA's international standard prohibited list, 6, the consequences of athletes who have dope, 7, the case studies, 8, interviews with sports-related people and their view on clean sports and doping, and 9, our event and results of spreading awareness. What is doping? Doping is the use of a substance or technique to illegally improve athletic performance. There are many anti-doping organizations and agencies that collectively contribute to efforts in creating doping-free sport around the world. These efforts are regulated globally by the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA. WADA is internationally funded by the Olympic movement and directed by the International Olympic Committee and governments from around the world. WADA's objectives are, number 1, to educate, to create and spread awareness in preventing intentional and unintentional anti-doping. 2, to deter, to strongly discourage athletes that may dope and have sanctions in place for those that do. Detect, to have an effective and trusty system that catches athletes committing anti-doping violations. To enforce sanctions on those in violation of the anti-doping guidelines. And lastly, to rule out, to ensure that all relevant stakeholders and signatories have agreed to obey the code and that all present and future anti-doping laws are within the code respectively. We have blood doping, which is the injecting of oxygenated blood into the body to increase the red blood cell and hemoglobin mass, which in turn increases the amount of oxygen that is being transported to the muscles. This increases the stamina and endurance in an athlete, hence enhancing their performance levels. There are 3 types of blood doping: EPO, synthetic oxygen carriers, and blood transfusions. Blood doping has many harmful effects, such as blood clots, increases risk of heart attack and strokes, and blood transfusions can also transmit diseases, such as HIV, hepatitis, and blood transfusions can cause acute lung disease and bacterial infection. The next PED is human growth hormone. It is an artificially produced drug that has anabolic effects, meaning it is used to increase muscle mass and muscle building. These effects cause athletes to have an increase in strength and endurance. Its side effects include diabetes, hepatitis, and renal failure. The next PED is stimulants, which are a class of drug that speed up messages traveling between the brain and the body. They can make you feel more alert and confident. They can increase your heart rate, blood pressure, and body temperature. And they can also cause reduced appetite, agitation, and sleeplessness. The next PED is anabolic steroids, known more properly as anabolic androgenic steroids, which are steroidal androgens that include natural androgens like testosterone, as well as synthetic androgens that are structurally related and have similar effects to testosterone. It promotes constructive metabolism. It has a lot of negative effects, such as kidney failure, liver damage, tumors, enlarged heart, high blood pressure, and changes in blood cholesterol. The main tests held on athletes are blood and urine tests. This is to check whether the athletes have used PEDs. These tests are not scheduled and can be held at any time of the year by regional and anti-doping committees under WADA's command. Athletes, however, can apply for a TUE, therapeutic use exemption, to use drugs for medical purposes. Certain medications can be prohibited for those competing. A TUE allows an athlete to compete fairly with proper health. WADA also has the right to reject a TUE if it's considered invalid. Athletes may choose to appeal again if such events take place.
Some reasons why athletes dope could be to increase performance, financial influence, medical conditions, peer pressure. WADA's International Standard Prohibited List consists of 4 subcategories: prohibited in competition, prohibited at all times, specified and non-specified substance of abuse. If any athlete's test samples contain any restricted substance from these 4 categories, it will be considered an anti-doping misdemeanor.
There are also penalties for doping, such as getting disqualified from certain competitions and events, forfeiting medals, and even paying fines. Athletes can be subjected to a sanction for competing, ranging from several months to a lifetime. For the first violation, the athlete can be subjected to a 2-year ban, and on the second, they can be subjected to a lifetime ban.
We researched different case studies from Singapore, USA, and Russia. For Singapore, Lin Boyang is a licensed doctor who frequently partakes in running marathons. In her case of doping, she suffered a severe ankle injury while training for a competition. On the day of the competition, Boyang took the drugs modafinil and acaxia. Modafinil was part of the WADA prohibited list. Her drug test result came back positive and was therefore suspended from competing in marathons for 3 years and 9 months. Boyang claimed that she was unaware that one of the drugs she had taken was under the WADA prohibited list. Joseph Schooling is a professional swimmer who had recently been suspended from competing in competitions such as the Olympics due to him supposedly using cannabis for recreational purposes outside of Singapore. Joseph Schooling has to undergo a 6-month urine test regime. He also has a high possibility of not participating in the 2024 Paris Olympics. Singapore was chosen as our anti-doping case study as it has a very harsh drug law for its citizens. The consequences of drug use are extreme, such as a death sentence. For the US, a well-known example is Lance Armstrong. He is a road racing cyclist who admitted to using drugs in 2013, and as a result, Armstrong lost all 7 of his Tour de France titles. Armstrong has since been a lifelong ban, which means he is not allowed to compete, ruining his reputation and career. We chose the US because they have a more neutral approach and take necessary actions to the extent of how severe the individual's case may be. The US can be seen as a neutral point of view on doping. For Russia, one of the recent cases of Russia's doping scandal is a minor Kamila Valieva, who tested positive in December 2021 during the Beijing Winter Olympics. The drug she had tested positive for was germidacidin. Due to Valieva being underage, she did not receive harsh discipline as she is a minor and might have been told by adults such as coaches to take the drug. She was allowed to compete in the Beijing Olympics but suspended all medal ceremonies for winning teams on the podium, including clean athletes, and stated that medal ceremonies would not be conducted until there was no outcome for Valieva's case. We chose Russia as our pro-doping case study as Russia has an extreme history of doping in which 99% of their athletes have used PEDs, which is why they are banned from some or almost all sports.
Our aim by interviewing was to see a general opinion being shared among each interviewees, which is that doping is frowned upon and that clean sports is always and highly valued and encouraged.
It's a bane on sport itself in every aspect. Obviously, it's seen as cheating. I obviously hugely disagree.
I feel quite strongly about doping in sports. I think it should be banned and forbidden from the sports. I don't think anyone should have an unfair advantage over anyone in any shape or any sport.
Well, like with anything at the moment with technology, everything changes very quickly. So I think we are struggling to keep up with the advances in cheating, blood doping. It's very, very hard to now detect with some of the methods that have been used for blood doping. So I think they are fighting a battle, but a losing battle on occasion, I think.
I think it's very hard, especially trying to set up a system to police so many athletes throughout the world.
Clean and fair sports. Well, every sport should be clean and fair. Unfortunately, there are athletes that don't abide by those rules. They cheat. They take performance-enhancing drugs. They blood dope. So, yeah, every sport needs to be clean and fair. However, sometimes that doesn't work like that. Well, obviously it taints their reputation and a lot of the time it can end careers. So in my sport, rugby, if an athlete or a player is found guilty of cheating or blood doping, then they serve quite a substantial ban.
It can be quite damaging, I think, personally and socially. I think their careers could be put into, it could be shattered, in fact. They could have huge fines, which could cost up to millions. They could be ridden of their sponsorship deals. And I think they're well aware of the consequences and knock-on effects that it can have.
Our event was held for grade 6 to 10. During our event, we firstly conducted a Kahoot quiz, which we made to test students' existing knowledge of doping in sports. We then showcased a video which we made summarising doping in sports and the effects it has on health and reputation. Lastly, we conducted a survey to find out whether our event raised awareness and provided more knowledge about doping in sports. From our survey results, we can see that 69.2 people already had previous knowledge about doping in sports before watching our video. 55.1% found the video informative and now know more about doping in sports. 37.2% found the video somewhat informative as they had already had previous knowledge about doping in sports, and 7.7% did not find the video informative. We can also gather that majority of the respondents now understand more about the importance of clean sports. 26.9% said that they found it a 9 out of 10 on the scale of importance, and 38.5% said they found it a 10 out of 10. Overall, 74.4% of respondents found our event engaging and effective to enhance people's understanding of doping in sports and the importance of clean sports.